My parents didn't threaten me with anger, they used something far worse: certainty. We were sitting in the sunroom of my townhouse in Charleston, South Carolina, when my father rested his hands on his knees, looked me directly in the eyes, and said, "Liam, you will pay for your sister's wedding. That's your role in this family." My mother nodded like they were announcing seating arrangements, not issuing an ultimatum, and my younger sister, Aubrey, 28, sat with her legs crossed and a smug little smile, the same one she used as a child whenever she knew the adults would take her side. I didn't shout. I didn't shake. Instead, I stood, opened the sunroom door, and said evenly, "If those are my two options, then here's my answer. You have until tomorrow morning to be out of my home." Their faces crumbled because they expected obedience, not boundaries. My name is Liam Carter. I'm 35, and for most of my life, I served as the family fixer, the reliable son. The one who worked through college while everyone else took vacations. The one who paid bills when Dad's construction business faltered. The one who helped Aubrey when she blew through her savings for the third time. 3 months ago, when my parents' mortgage collapsed and they begged for a place to stay, I opened my door without hesitation. It was supposed to be temporary, but within days, Mom was rearranging my pantry. Dad took over my garage for paperwork. Aubrey moved into my master bedroom because the lighting was better for her engagement photos. Groceries vanished. My car disappeared for quick errands. And now, they wanted $42,000 for a wedding I wasn't even invited to help plan. So I gave them my decision: quiet, steady, final. And that was the moment I stopped being their safety net and started being my own person. Sandra always had a way of dismissing responsibility with a smile. Anytime I gently brought up shared expenses, she'd pat my arm and say, "Family supports each other, Liam." Funny how support always meant me carrying them. Even outside the house, the narrative warped. One afternoon, my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, stopped me by the mailbox, concern softening her voice. "Your parents mentioned how financially stressed you've been," she whispered sympathetically. "Stressed while I was paying for all 4 of us." I ignored the truth for months. That's what good sons are taught to do, right? We stretch. We bend. We absorb the impact. It wasn't until 6 months ago, when I started therapy with Dr. Rowan, that someone finally named what I had been living through: financial exploitation, emotional manipulation, and decades of conditioning disguised as family obligation. I wasn't ready to confront them then, but I began to notice everything. Every entitled sigh from Greg, every dismissive glance from Sandra, every time Aubrey strutted through my home like she was auditioning for a lifestyle show. And slowly, the cracks began to appear. Dr. Rowan told me, "You've been trained to normalize dysfunction. Start noticing what you've been taught to overlook." So I did. It started with the bills. One Saturday morning, at the same dining table where I once ate midnight takeout after long construction site shifts, I opened the stack I'd been avoiding: electricity, water, gas, groceries. Every expense had nearly doubled since they'd moved in. While I totaled the numbers twice, then a third time, Aubrey wandered in barefoot, scrolling her phone, grabbed the last bottle of mineral water I'd bought, and said, "We're out of groceries again. Can you go today?" Not a please. Not an offer to help. Just expectation. Another fracture. Then came the day Aubrey's fiancé, Noah Brooks, knocked on my door holding a box of pastries like a peace offering. He shifted awkwardly. "Liam, could we talk outside for a second?" "Noah. She's really excited about the wedding," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "And your parents mentioned you might help with some of the expenses." I blinked at him, stunned. My family had already calculated how to spend money that wasn't theirs. "Why would they say that?" I asked. He hesitated. "I think they assumed you'd want to contribute. You know. Since you're stable." Stable. The word hit like a slap. Not successful. Not hard-working. Just stable, the word people use when they think your life is designed to carry everyone else's weight. Another crack. Noah apologized before he left, clearly puzzled by the tension he'd stumbled into. Then came the moment that split the fracture wide open. Aubrey had taken my truck without asking. When she returned, the passenger seat was smeared with foundation, fast food bags were piled on the floor, and the gas tank was flashing empty. I confronted her gently, always gently. Aubrey, could you just give me a heads up next time? I needed the truck today. She stared at me like I'd asked her to do calculus. Relax, Liam. You barely go anywhere. And it's not like you can't afford gas. I am FT and I am ever active. The entitlement was staggering. But the worst moments were the small ones. Sandra moving my clothes out of my own closet because she needed more room. Greg telling visitors, "Our house gets great light," as if he'd paid even one mortgage payment. Aubrey lounging across my couch with her feet on the coffee table like a queen in borrowed territory. Every day I felt like a stranger in the home I built. And still, I stayed quiet. Until one night, during therapy, Dr. Rowan leaned forward and said the sentence that detonated everything. "Liam, they're not confused. They're benefiting." That truth rewired my entire childhood. The undercurrents weren't subtle anymore. They were tidal. And something was coming. I didn't know when. But when the dam finally broke, it would change everything. It happened on a Sunday night. The kind of night that used to mean comfort. But in my house, Sunday dinners had become a performance. A stage where Greg and Sandra played the roles of wise, loving parents guiding their grown children. The illusion was about to shatter. I cooked dinner like I always did. Not because anyone asked politely, but because the alternative was listening to Aubrey complain that the seasoning feels wrong every time she touched a pan. I made roasted chicken, vegetables, a basic salad, nothing special. Just something that might quiet the tension long enough for us to get through another Sunday meal. But the moment they sat down, I felt a pressure in the air, like a storm tightening its grip around the house. Aubrey's smile was too sweet. Greg's stare lingered on me a second too long. Sandra kept smoothing her napkin, eyes flicking nervously between the three of them. Something was about to happen. We ate in heavy silence. I tried to breathe normally, to pretend the chicken didn't taste like dread. Then Greg cleared his throat, the loud, theatrical kind he used when he wanted authority. He set his fork down with deliberate precision. "Liam," he began, "we need to talk about the wedding." There it was. The storm door cracked open. I kept my voice level. "What about it?" Sandra jumped in before he could answer, her smile stretched thin. "We've been thinking about how important this day is for Aubrey. A wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime moment, and it should be done right." Aubrey cut into her chicken, eyes fixed on me, wearing the same smirk she'd worn as a kid whenever she took something that wasn't hers. Greg leaned forward. "It's your duty to support your sister." Duty. The word tightened around my throat. "How exactly?" I asked. Sandra gave a soft laugh. "Liam, you're an engineer. You have a stable job. Contributing should be obvious." I felt my pulse spike. "How much?" Aubrey answered casually. 28,000. My emergency fund. Years of careful planning. "That's a lot of money," I said quietly. Greg's voice sharpened. "Family deserves investment. And if you won't contribute," he looked directly at me, "then you can disappear from this home forever." My breath caught. Disappear from my own house. If you want to see exactly what I said after my own family told me to disappear from my house, hit subscribe now, because the next part changes everything. The home I paid for, every mortgage payment, every repair, every bill, while they lived rent-free for nearly 3 years. Aubrey didn't blink. She didn't shift. She didn't even pretend to feel guilty. She just smiled. Small. Smug. Victorious. Something inside me cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It was a thin, precise fracture, like a piece of glass splitting under quiet pressure. For a long moment, no one spoke. Greg and Sandra stared at me with expectant annoyance, as if I should apologize for not agreeing fast enough. Aubrey twirled her wineglass by the stem, humming like she was enjoying a show. And all I could think was, they truly believe I exist to serve them. Dr. Rowan's voice echoed in my mind. "They're not confused, Liam. They're benefiting." I set my fork down. My hand didn't tremble this time. For the first time in years, my heartbeat slowed instead of racing. My mind cleared. My body steadied. I stood up from the table. Sandra's eyes widened. Greg lifted an eyebrow. Aubrey tilted her head, amused, until the silence stretched long enough for her smirk to fade. Then, in the calmest voice I've ever had, I said, You have 24 hours to leave my house. The room snapped like a wire pulled too tight. Greg shot to his feet. You ungrateful. I raised a hand. He froze mid-sentence. Sandra gasped into her napkin, like she was watching her puppet cut its own strings. Aubrey's expression twisted shock first, then rage. You can't be serious, she said. I am. You can't just. I can, I replied. And I will. For once, none of them had lines prepared. Their script, the one they'd rehearsed all my life, was gone. I pushed my chair in, smoothing the unused napkin. You have until tomorrow evening. After that, I'm changing the locks. No shouting. No justifying. No guilt. I walked out of the room, out of the obligations, the silence, the shrinking of myself. Behind me, I heard Aubrey hiss. He's lost it. Greg muttered about respect. Sandra sobbed softly. None of it mattered. The storm had finally broken. And for once, I wasn't the one drowning. I didn't sleep that night, not out of fear, but because for the first time in 3 years, the house finally felt like it belonged to me again. Every creak in the floorboards, every hum of the HVAC, every shifting shadow reminded me this was my home, not a stage for someone else's entitlement. I sat in the dim glow of the living room lamp, on the couch Aubrey always commandeered, and let the silence settle. Real silence. Not her gossip calls, not Greg's TV blaring, not Sandra's constant critiques about how a proper home should run. At 2 a.m., I opened my laptop. I'm not a property lawyer, but I didn't need to be to know I was within my rights. They weren't tenants. They paid nothing. They contributed nothing. By 3 a.m., I'd booked a locksmith for the next evening. By 4 a.m., I'd listed every item in the house that was mine, which was nearly all of it. By 6 a.m., I brewed coffee and watched the sunrise paint Charleston in a soft orange I hadn't noticed in months. At 7 sharp, I knocked on the master bedroom door, my master bedroom, the one Aubrey claimed fit her energy. Greg opened it wearing my robe, face swollen with irritation. What now? He snapped. I'm reminding you, I said calmly. You have 24 hours left. You're being dramatic. No. I've been patient. Aubrey jolted upright. You're actually doing this? Yes. Ain't you? Sandra stepped from the hallway bathroom, clutching her robe. Liam, sweetheart, don't do something you'll regret. I regret letting it go this far. The morning unfolded in quiet chaos, suitcases zipping, doors slamming, whispers sharp as knives. No one approached me. By noon they regrouped in the living room, like a tribunal. Greg leaned forward. Sandra, Terry, Aubrey scowling. Liam, Greg said, we think you need to reconsider. Aita. I didn't sleep that night, not out of fear, but because for the first time in 3 years, the house finally felt like it belonged to me again. Every creak, every hum of the AC, every shifting shadow reminded me this place was mine, not a stage for my family's entitlement. I sat in the dim living room on the couch. Aubrey always claimed and let the silence settle. Real silence, not broken by her gossip calls, Greg's golf broadcasts, or Sandra's constant commentary about how a home should run. At 2 a.m., I opened my laptop and reviewed everything I knew about removing long-term guests. They weren't tenants. No lease. No rent. No contribution. By 3 a.m., I'd booked a locksmith. By 4 a.m., I'd listed every item in the house that was mine, which was nearly everything. By sunrise, I brewed coffee and watched colors I hadn't noticed in months wash over the sky. At 7 a.m., I knocked on the master bedroom door, my bedroom. Greg opened it wearing a robe I bought years ago. What now? He snapped. Just reminding you, I said calmly. You have 24 hours left. You're being dramatic. No. I've been patient. Behind him, Aubrey sat up, furious. You're really doing this? Yes. Sandra appeared, wringing her robe. Liam, don't do something you'll regret. I regret letting it go this far. The rest of the morning was quiet chaos, slamming drawers, zipping suitcases, whispered panic. By noon they gathered like a tribunal, trying one last time. Liam, Greg said. Reconsider. No. Sandra pleaded. Aubrey accused. Greg threatened. None of it worked. I finally picked up my phone and dialed. Let them hear the ringing. Greg's face drained. Fine. We'll go. By 9:23 p.m., they stood at the door. Sandra whispered. I hope you're happy. I hope I will be. I closed the door, locked it, and breathed. For the first time in years, the silence was mine. I walked through every room they'd taken over: the master bedroom, the office, the kitchen. There were dents and scratches, reminders of how far things had gone. But beneath the mess, my life was still there. Peace didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived like an exhale I didn't know I'd been holding for 3 years. The first morning alone felt unreal. I woke expecting Aubrey's voice, Greg's cough, Sandra clattering dishes she never washed. Instead, there was only the hum of the heater and sunlight warming the foot of my bed, my master bedroom reclaimed at last. I made coffee in a quiet kitchen. Real quiet. No tension. No bracing for criticism. No walking on eggshells in my own house. Later that week, my friend Ruby stopped by. She looked around slowly. I didn't realize how heavy it felt in here, she whispered. But Liam, you look 10 years lighter. She was right. The house breathed. And so did I. Bills returned to normal. My fridge stayed full. My truck remained where I left it. And the quiet, steady, uninterrupted quiet felt like medicine. Almost 3 weeks later, at 2:08 a.m., my phone rang. I didn't need to check the caller ID. Aubrey. Her voice shook. Liam, I need help. For once, it wasn't manipulation. It was fear. What's wrong? I asked. A shaky breath. I'm pregnant. My heart didn't drop from panic. It dropped from recognition. This was the pattern. A crisis designed to pull me back into sacrificing myself. I can't afford anything, she whispered. Appointments. Rent. Nothing. I don't know what to do. Instinct screamed. Fix it. Save her. Carry the weight again. But Dr. Rowan's voice cut through. If you rescue her from her choices, she'll never learn to stand. Aubrey, I said gently, I'm sorry you're scared. Truly. But I can't be your only safety net anymore, she sobbed. So you're abandoning me? No. I'm giving you resources, not my life. I told her about programs, support centers, maternity assistance, practical help that didn't require self-sacrifice. She cried harder, then fell silent. She didn't say goodbye. I didn't call back. Weeks later, updates came through family channels. Aubrey had moved into a maternity support program, found part-time work at a daycare, and was managing messy, imperfect, but managing. For the first time, she was standing without me breaking myself to hold her up. A year has passed since that night. My parents now rent a small studio on Charleston's north side. Greg works part-time. Sandra does remote data entry. They aren't thriving, but they're finally standing on their own feet. Aubrey had her baby boy. I've only seen photos, but he looks peaceful, untouched by the battles that shaped us. As for me, my home is quiet. My savings intact. My mornings are my own. For the first time, I'm building a life that doesn't require shrinking myself to accommodate people who never made room for me. If this story hits something familiar in you, tell me where you're listening from. And if you've ever had to choose yourself, share your story below. Make sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss what comes next.